With reports from Bill Graham, Cinda Cates, Colleen Duffy-Felix, and Walter Lutz on Burbank Magazine August 2010.
Reporting from the Burbank City Council chamber on the second floor of City Hall, this is Burbank Magazine with Peter Musurlian.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. If you drink coffee, there's probably a 100% chance you've had or regularly consumed the coffee of a company called Gavina. They're plants in Vernon, they live primarily in Glendale, and they provide coffee to Portos in Burbank. But as I found out recently, these California coffee kings are much bigger than you might even imagine.
We're going to break that crust, so there's this layer of ground coffee on the top that we're going to break, and we're going to get this explosion of smell.
This is Michael Gavina, a fourth-generation coffee aficionado. His great-grandfather left Spain for Cuba in the late 1800s to grow and eventually roast coffee. But it was his grandfather, Don Francisco Gavina, who became a very successful roaster in Cuba.
The coffee business was going well. It was going fine. Cuba was their home until Fidel Castro came over and decided that everything belonged to the state.
You might have heard of Don Francisco. The coffee that bears his name is in grocery stores all over the country. In fact, it's one of the top 10 brands nationally. And the company he named F. Gavina Sons more than 40 years ago is America's largest family-owned and minority-owned coffee roaster. The company supplies coffee to more than 3,000 McDonald's stores in the western United States, and you'll also find their Jose's coffee on the shelves at Costco. Although a significant amount of their business is those private labels and restaurants, almost half of their sales are in stores selling their flagship brand, Don Francisco's coffee. Things weren't always so rosy for Don Francisco. When he left the country of his birth with his wife, 3 teenage sons, and an 8-year-old daughter, he started to pursue the American dream from scratch, at an age most people start planning for retirement.
We left Cuba with 5 suitcases and 150 Cuban pesos back in 1960. And my dad was 57. Here he worked in a restaurant as a busboy and a dishwasher. And then eventually he was able to get into the business.
Leonore was that 8-year-old girl in 1960. Now she's head of marketing. She and her 3 brothers run the company that in part owes its attainment of the American dream to the devastating Cuban Revolution and the much appreciated coffee revolution.
We had our ups and downs. Right up until the mid-'80s was when we started with the coffee revolution, the specialty coffee shops, etc. That's when we really started getting a lot of business.
Revolutions aside, Leonore points to one person that's responsible for it all, the man who came to America as a senior citizen and lived to 93, along the way building a coffee empire.
You know, one thing I can always say about my dad was that he was very honest and is an extremely hard worker person. And he never gave up. Perseverance. And that's something that we have never given up on anything. If we set a goal, we continue on until we are at that goal.
The company's most recent goal has been met as it has entered the burgeoning super premium coffee category with the introduction of Don Francisco's Coffee Family Reserve line.
It's Don Francisco's Gourmet coffee. It comes in 2 different styles. There's a can of coffee and there's a bag called a Family Reserve. They're both excellent products. It's really polishing a diamond just a little bit finer. One's a super premium coffee and one's a premium coffee. That's the color you want coffee to be.
If anyone knows the difference, it's Michael. He's one of the company's handful of Q graders who make sure the quality of the coffee does not fall below a certain standard.
The industry has a scorecard that will grade body, balance, overall acidity, and a few different key features that make that coffee better than a comparable coffee.
To assure high-quality coffee, Michael says the new Family Reserve line will meet an even higher standard.
Any agricultural business, you may buy something, you may buy a lot of Costa Rican, I'm going to get technical, you might buy a lot of Costa Rican coffee. From the same area, it will taste different. That same season, the same harvest, it will taste a little bit different. So what we do is get the best of the best for that actual line.
The process of evaluating the quality of coffee is called cupping.
We're tasting to see which is the best of the best to put it in that Family Reserve. So we'll segregate the better beans and put them in there. And we're also confirming that what we're buying is high quality. When we're cupping coffee, we just finished roasting these samples. We grind them, and then we smell them in their dry form first. So while you're smelling it, you can actually smell the different attributes that different origins may have, the fruitiness or the earthiness, or the sweetness that a coffee has. And you can also smell if there's something wrong with that coffee at this point. So oftentimes, smelling will let you know what you're about to taste.
The conventional technique when cupping is to take a deep breath and slurp.
You can identify sweet, sour, salt, and body with your tongue, which we're looking for in coffee. And another reason is whenever you mix the slurp with the oxygen, you actually can taste it a little bit better. So that's what we're going to do now.
While Michael is cupping, his father is just around the corner, staying true to the role of a hands-on executive. Pedro Gavina is the president of F. Gavina Sons. He's the oldest son of Don Francisco, from whom he learned the art of roasting and cupping. That education has now reached a fourth generation of Gavinas. F. Gavina Sons produces more than 40 million pounds of coffee a year, exceeding more than $114 million in annual sales. The hope now is that the new Family Reserve line will increase the public's loyalty to their brand, as well as increase the bottom line. In Vernon, reporting for Burbank Magazine, I'm Peter Musurlian.